Have you ever met someone who radiates confidence, who speaks with conviction, who is so sure of themselves that you almost begin to doubt your own judgment, only to watch them lead an entire group, project, or even a whole society into disaster? Imagine that person smiling, insisting they're helping, while around them relationships crumble, communities fracture, or opportunities vanish. And the strangest part, you know deep down they believe they're doing good. No malice, no evil plan, just certainty. And then the unsettling thought creeps in. What if this isn't just an accident? What if this is the rule rather than the exception? You've probably been taught to fear villains, the schemers, the manipulators, the people who pursue cruelty with deliberate intent. But pause for a moment. Think back through history, through your own experiences, through the countless choices people make every day. Who has caused more destruction? The few who consciously choose evil, or the many who, with bright eyes and a clean conscience, act without the faintest clue of the harm they create? Now imagine this on a grander scale. Algorithms amplify the loudest voices, not the wisest ones. The most reckless rise to the top of public conversation because they're bold, entertaining, and unafraid of being wrong. The cautious, the thoughtful, the nuanced, silenced, drowned out, ignored. You scroll, you consume, you watch society bend not under the weight of calculated evil, but under the avalanche of confident ignorance. Here is the paradox that should make you uneasy. You've been taught to guard yourself against evil, but not against stupidity. Evil at least has a pattern. It is visible, rational, goal-directed. Stupidity, by contrast, is chaotic. It strikes blindly, without logic, without proportion. Evil follows rules stupidity does not. And because of that, stupidity is unpredictable, insatiable, and far harder to defend against. Think about the times in your own life when well-meaning people, perhaps friends or coworkers, made decisions that shattered something valuable. They didn't betray you out of cruelty. They truly thought they were doing what was right. And yet, the damage remained. You were left asking, how could they not see? How could they not know? This is where the tension deepens. Because if stupidity is not about intelligence, then no one is safe from it. Not you, not me, not the most educated or the most experienced. It is not measured by IQ or by credentials. It is measured by the gap between confidence and reality, between intention and outcome. So ask yourself, how many disasters in your world, personal, political, economic, can be traced back to stupidity disguised as sincerity? How many times has trying to help ended up creating a bigger mess than the original problem? And how many times have you, without even noticing, been part of that same pattern? You sense the danger now. It isn't a foreign invader. It isn't the shadowy figure in the dark. It's in the boardroom, in the family dinner, in the news headline, in the group chat. It's in the choices made by people who never imagined they could be dangerous. It's in the smile of someone convinced they are right. And here lies the great, terrifying question, the one you cannot escape. If evil is not the greatest threat to you, to your relationships, to society, what if it's stupidity? If this is true, then the problem is far larger than you ever suspected, because evil is rare, but stupidity is everywhere. And unlike evil, stupidity believes itself virtuous. It doesn't hide in shadows. It thrives in the open, smiling, applauded, often rewarded. And so, the question is not merely academic, it's urgent, existential, pressing. How do you defend yourself against an enemy that doesn't even know it's an enemy? This is where the journey begins, at the edge of a realization that overturns everything you thought you knew about danger, power, and human nature. Imagine this. You walk into a room filled with people debating passionately. Each person speaks as though they alone see the truth, their words firm, their gestures sharp. But beneath the surface, there's something unsettling. You sense that no one is really listening. No one is reflecting. No one is questioning themselves. Everyone is convinced. And conviction without clarity is like fire without control. This is the hidden danger Carlo Cipolla tried to reveal when he described the laws of human stupidity. According to him, stupidity is not a marginal issue, but a systemic force, shaping history and society in ways we fail to acknowledge. And here's the paradox. Stupidity is rarely self-aware. The stupid person is certain of their righteousness. They move forward with energy, with confidence, with enthusiasm, yet their actions generate losses, not only for others, but often for themselves. Why does this happen? To understand, you must descend into the psychological and philosophical roots of human behavior. Carl Jung once warned, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. When you cannot see yourself clearly, when you deny your shadows, you act from blindness. And blindness, armed with confidence, becomes dangerous. A person who refuses to examine their inner contradictions can sincerely believe they are serving the greater good, while in truth they are fleeing from their own fears, their own ignorance, their own fragility. Nietzsche sharpened this insight when he declared, "Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies. Lies at least contain intention. They can be challenged, exposed, confronted. Convictions, on the other hand, are often unshakable, woven into identity. When you believe something not because you've tested it, but because it gives you comfort, meaning, or belonging, you cling to it with ferocity. And in defending it, you may sacrifice reason, evidence, even compassion. Think of the many well-meaning revolutions, movements, or policies that promised liberation but delivered suffering. Rarely were they born from pure malice. More often, they grew from the unexamined conviction that this must be good, that progress requires this, that everyone will benefit. The blindness wasn't intentional. It was structural, psychological, inevitable. Arthur Schopenhauer once observed that most people take the limits of their vision for the limits of the world. You live inside a mental map drawn by culture, family, algorithms, traditions. You don't see the whole, only the piece illuminated by habit and conditioning. Yet you mistake this partial map for reality itself. And when you act confidently from that illusion, you are not malicious, you are simply unaware. But the consequences are no less destructive. This is where philosophy meets psychology. Human beings crave certainty. Uncertainty feels like chaos, like ground slipping beneath your feet. To live without answers is unbearable, so you reach for them, even if they are false. Aldous Huxley once said, "Facts do not cease to exist because they are ignored." And yet, every day, people ignore inconvenient truths to protect the fragile sense that they know what they're doing. Society rewards this. You are applauded not for your humility, but for your confidence. Leaders who project certainty rise faster than those who admit doubt. Algorithms elevate the loudest voices, not the wisest ones. And so you find yourself in a culture where to question yourself is to risk invisibility, while to assert without reflection is to gain power. But beneath this lies an even deeper mechanism: fear. Sartre noted, man is condemned to be free. With freedom comes responsibility, the weight of choice, the burden of consequence. To escape this terror, many surrender to groupthink, ideology, dogma. You tell yourself you are helping, you are doing what is right, because the alternative that you are adrift, uncertain, alone, is too heavy to bear. And so stupidity takes root not in lack of intelligence, but in avoidance of responsibility. It is easier to act blindly with conviction than to face the abyss of not knowing. Easier to repeat slogans than to wrestle with contradictions. Easier to cause destruction while feeling virtuous than to live in doubt, uncertainty, and humility. But here is the most disturbing part. Stupidity hides in you as well. It whispers when you refuse to question your motives, when you defend your choices simply because they are yours, when you silence the voice inside that says, "Wait, what if I'm wrong?" Viktor Frankl once wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Yet how often do you ignore that space? How often do you react not from freedom, but from habit, fear, ideology? That failure is the seed of stupidity. Now the problem sharpens into focus. Stupidity is not about lack of knowledge, but about refusal to reflect, refusal to see, refusal to pause. It is psychological blindness woven into philosophical conviction. And when multiplied across millions, it becomes not just a personal weakness, but a force shaping history. This is why Cipolla's warning is so urgent. Because stupidity is not an accident, it is a law. And laws, once ignored, rule you in silence. But if this is true, then what does it mean for your life, your society, your future? What happens when blindness masquerading as virtue builds the world you live in? That question opens the door to the next realization. Not only is stupidity deeply rooted in your psyche, it has consequences you cannot see until it's too late. Think about the last time you saw a decision unravel in slow motion. At first, it looked harmless, maybe even hopeful. People were excited. There was talk of progress, of solutions, of a brighter future. But months or years later, you saw the cracks. Friendships broken, trust lost, systems collapsing. The irony is painful. What began with optimism ended with destruction. And no one could quite explain how it happened. This is the hidden consequence of stupidity. It reshapes reality silently, invisibly, like a fault line beneath the ground that only reveals itself when the earthquake hits. The economist Carlo Cipolla warned that stupid people are uniquely dangerous because they create lose-lose situations. Unlike the selfish, who at least benefit from their exploitation, or the evil, who gain while others lose, the stupid cause harm without gain. Everyone suffers, including themselves. And because they act with conviction, they leave behind confusion rather than clarity, wreckage rather than lessons. You may wonder, how does this play out in everyday life? The answer lies in the mechanisms of the mind. Psychologists speak of cognitive biases, shortcuts your brain takes to make sense of complexity. Confirmation bias makes you seek only the evidence that agrees with you. The Dunning-Kruger effect convinces you that the less you know, the more confident you feel. Availability bias makes you overestimate risks or successes based on the most vivid examples, not the most accurate data. Each of these biases, when left unchecked, fuels stupidity. You feel certain, but your certainty is built on illusion. Now scale this up, multiply it across millions of people. Add the fuel of social media, where algorithms are designed to amplify emotion, not reflection. Rage, fear, and false confidence spread faster than doubt or humility. What happens? Entire societies begin making decisions not from wisdom, but from noise. Politicians rise not because they are competent, but because they sound certain. Movements grow not because they are grounded, but because they are loud. And here's the paradox you feel in your own life. Stupidity often feels like energy. A colleague with reckless ideas may seem bold, inspiring even, because they don't hesitate. Their confidence is contagious. But that same confidence, left unexamined, drives projects into the ground. And by the time you realize it, the damage is already done. Arthur Schopenhauer described stupidity as the greatest sin against the spirit. Why? Because it blinds you to cause and effect. You forget that actions ripple outward, touching lives you will never see. You forget that today's reckless certainty becomes tomorrow's silent catastrophe. Consider history. Economic crashes fueled by speculation and blind optimism. Wars begun under the banner of righteousness that left nothing but ruins. Policies meant to solve problems that created crises even worse. Were these the products of pure evil? Rarely. More often, They were born from stupidity, well-meaning certainty divorced from wisdom. And in your personal world, the same dynamic plays out. A friend insists on helping in ways you never asked for, making things worse. A manager, desperate to appear decisive, ignores nuance and drives a team into chaos. A parent, with good intentions, imposes choices that wound more than they heal. These moments accumulate. They shape who you trust, how you love, what you fear. The terrifying truth is that stupidity creates reality itself. Not just mistakes, but entire systems built on false assumptions. And once those systems are in place, they guide the lives of millions. You wake up each morning inside a structure of decisions made by people who believed they were doing good, but who never questioned themselves deeply enough to see the harm. This is why Cipolla called stupidity more dangerous than evil. Evil, at least, is limited by its purpose. It seeks something. It has a boundary. Stupidity knows no such limit. It spreads freely, without plan, without recognition, like a virus that doesn't realize it is killing its host. So the question returns to you. How do you protect yourself in a world where destruction is created, not by malice, but by ignorance that believes itself to be wisdom? How do you navigate relationships, communities, and systems where the most confident voices may also be the most blind? You feel the urgency now, don't you? Because stupidity is not just around you, it is inside you. Each time you ignore doubt, each time you silence the inner question, each time you choose confidence over clarity, you risk becoming part of the very force that endangers you. The breakthrough is close. You begin to sense it. If stupidity is not about intelligence, but about blindness, then perhaps the answer lies not in knowing more, but in seeing differently. Perhaps the rebellion against stupidity begins not outside, but inside. And that realization prepares you for the next step, the radical possibility of breaking free. Imagine you are standing in a crowded square. Voices rise all around you, confident, insistent, urgent. Each one claims to know the truth. Some call for safety, others for progress, others for justice. They all sound certain. The crowd surges, pulled in different directions, and you feel the magnetic pull to join one side, to belong, to echo their words. But in the back of your mind, a small voice whispers, what if they are all wrong? What if confidence itself is the trap? This is the rebellion, not against society, not against others, but against the part of yourself that craves easy certainty. To rebel against stupidity, you must do something profoundly counterintuitive. You must reclaim your right to doubt. Cipolla warned that stupidity creates destruction without awareness. The antidote, then, is awareness, painful, uncomfortable, unrelenting awareness. Instead of rushing to act with blind confidence, you pause. Instead of clinging to conviction, you let yourself feel the discomfort of not knowing. And in that pause, you begin to see what others miss. Consider history. Socrates declared himself the wisest of men only because he knew that he knew nothing. This radical humility was his rebellion against the ignorance of his time. Where others clung to certainties, he asked questions. Where others boasted of knowledge, he admitted doubt. And for this rebellion against stupidity disguised as wisdom, he paid with his life. Yet his legacy endures because he revealed a forbidden truth. True strength is not found in conviction, but in inquiry. Think of Galileo, who refused to bow to the dogma of his age. He looked through a telescope, saw the evidence with his own eyes, and dared to say, and yet it moves. He risked persecution to defend reality against ignorance. That courage to trust truth over consensus is the essence of rebellion against stupidity. And it applies to you as well. Every day you face choices shaped by the pressure of others' confidence. To break free, you must cultivate what Nietzsche called the courage of solitude, the strength to stand apart, to think independently, to risk being misunderstood. He wrote, The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. To be your own man is hard business. But that is precisely what rebellion demands. Here is the paradox. To resist stupidity, you must embrace what society often dismisses: hesitation, self-reflection, vulnerability. You must admit, I might be wrong, even when everyone else shouts certainty. That admission is not weakness. It is power, because in acknowledging your limits, you avoid the blind destruction of false confidence. Psychologically, this means retraining your mind. Instead of asking, how can I prove I'm right? You ask, where might I be wrong? Instead of rushing to act, you create the space Frankl spoke of, the gap between stimulus and response, where true freedom lies. Philosophically, it means rejecting the illusion that belonging requires agreement. You can stand in the square, surrounded by the roar of voices, and still hold your ground in silence, questioning, observing. You can refuse to be swept up by the tide of confident ignorance. But rebellion is not only defensive, it is creative. It demands building a new value system. Instead of measuring worth by certainty, you measure it by openness. Instead of rewarding loudness, you honor reflection. Instead of fearing doubt, you embrace it as the beginning of wisdom. Look to those who have done this before. Think of Viktor Frankl, who in the darkest of human conditions refused to let despair define him. His rebellion was not loud, but profound, to find meaning even in suffering, to claim inner sovereignty when everything external is stripped away. He showed that the ultimate rebellion is the refusal to surrender your consciousness to the blind forces around you. And you, yes, you are capable of the same. Every time you resist the urge to echo the loudest voice, you break free. Every time you pause before reacting, you loosen stupidity's grip. Every time you allow doubt to refine your convictions, you rebel. Does this sound small? It is not, because the greatest revolutions begin in silence, in the unseen depths of the individual. Society changes when individuals reclaim their power to think, to question, to choose. So now you stand at a threshold. On one side lies the world of confident ignorance, lose-lose logic, destruction disguised as virtue. On the other side lies the path of rebellion, the path of self-awareness, humility, and inner freedom. Which side will you choose? The answer matters. Because the rebellion is not just personal, it is the only hope for society itself. Without it, stupidity will continue to shape your world in silence. With it, you begin to carve a different reality. And yet, there is something even deeper than rebellion, something beyond the fight, beyond the struggle. A final truth that reveals why stupidity is not merely a danger to resist, but a mirror, reflecting the essence of human existence itself. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You are walking through a mirror maze. Every turn shows you a reflection, but none of them are quite right. Some distort your image, stretching you tall, shrinking you small. Others flip your face, exaggerate your flaws, hide your features. You walk in circles, convinced the exit must be just around the corner. But the truth is harder to accept. The maze isn't around you. It is you. This is the final revelation. Stupidity is not an external enemy you can defeat once and for all. It is a condition of being human. It lurks in every person, in every system, in every era, not because people are doomed to be foolish, but because blindness is built into the very fabric of consciousness. Think of it this way. Your mind is not a window to reality. It is a filter. It highlights fragments, edits complexity, compresses infinity into something survivable. Without that filter, you could not function. But the same filter that allows you to live also blinds you. You mistake your perspective for truth, your partial view for the whole. And when you act with certainty from that fragment, you create destruction. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. But how can you make yourself if you cannot see yourself clearly? The trap is unavoidable. You are always building from incomplete knowledge, from half-truths, from shadows. This is why Cipolla's laws resonate so deeply. They are not just about stupid people out there. They are about you. And here lies the paradox that overturns everything. The greatest danger is not stupidity itself, but your refusal to admit it lives within you. The moment you believe you are exempt, the moment you think, I am not the fool, I am the wise one, that is the very moment you become most dangerous. Because the true enemy is not ignorance, it is arrogance. This is the ultimate truth. Stupidity is not a flaw to eradicate, but a shadow to recognize. Like Jung's concept of the unconscious, it must be integrated, not denied. You cannot escape your blind spots, but you can learn to see the outline of them. You can live with awareness of your fragility. You can treat every conviction not as certainty, but as hypothesis. Every action not as destiny, but as experiment. Do you see how liberating this is? It means you are not doomed by stupidity. You are awakened by it. The danger becomes the teacher. The shadow becomes the guide. Look at history again with this in mind. The tragedies you once saw as proof of human failure now reveal a deeper story, that every collapse, every catastrophe, every absurdity is also a mirror. Humanity stumbles forward not despite stupidity, but because of it, because each mistake, each blind act, forces the painful growth of awareness. Out of ruins, new questions arise. Out of destruction, new wisdom takes shape. And what does this mean for you, personally? It means you no longer need to fear doubt. You no longer need to cling to confidence as your shield. You can stand in uncertainty and say, yes, I might be blind. Yes, I might be wrong. But that humility protects me from becoming destructive. This is what Nietzsche meant when he spoke of becoming who you are. To become is not to reach a perfect state of clarity, but to embrace the dance of blindness and vision, ignorance and learning, fallibility and growth. And so the final realization is not about eradicating stupidity, but about transcending the illusion of certainty. You break free not by escaping the maze, but by realizing you are the maze, and that awareness itself opens a path. Picture it, you walking again through the crowded square. The voices rise around you, as loud and insistent as ever. But now, instead of being swept up, you listen differently. You see the confidence of others not as proof of truth, but as potential blindness. You hear your own voice, not as authority, but as one perspective among many. You walk with humility, with curiosity, with vigilance. And in that posture, you become dangerous, not in the way stupidity is dangerous, but in the way awareness is. Dangerous to illusions, dangerous to dogmas, dangerous to the forces that thrive on blind confidence. This is the final call, to live awake in a world of sleepers, to recognize that stupidity is not out there, but in here, to transform the recognition of your limits into the deepest source of strength. Because in the end, the question was never, how do you eliminate stupidity? The question is, how do you live wisely knowing it cannot be eliminated? The answer, whispered across philosophy, psychology, and history, is simple yet profound. You live with humility. You live with doubt. You live with the courage to never stop questioning yourself. And that is the ultimate rebellion, the ultimate truth, the ultimate freedom.